All right, peace, 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 family. It's your brother Yosef, and I am back with another video. I hope everybody has been doing well. I hope everybody's been great. Um, Today, family, I want to talk about how astral spirits rule over cities. How astral spirits rule over cities. And really, what this video is going to be about, on a deeper to make it more simply understood, is this video is going to be about the spirit of a city. Yes, a city actually has a spirit, right? So if you live in San Francisco, that's a spirit, family. If you live in Chicago, that's a spirit. If you live in New York, that's a spirit, right? And I've only seen it explained one time in my life. It wasn't really explained, but I saw it in a movie once. It was called Constantine, City of Demons. If you guys haven't watched that, if you get a chance, go watch it. It's called Constantine, City of Demons. All right, City of Demons, family. Very powerful little cartoon show. Very dope. So yeah, family. It's called Constantine, City of Demons. So go watch that. And I thought that they didn't really explain it, but they showed how Los Angeles was an actual spirit. I'm like, yo, that's kind of true. Also, I had people ask me about um, is it true that, hey, spirits rule over cities, and how do you contact that spirit? And and what really made me do this video was last night I was in a dream, and somebody asked me that question in a dream. Does my city have a spirit over it? And I'm like, wow, let me do a video on this, man. You know what I mean? So I can explain it on a deeper level. So that's what I'm gonna do tonight, family. And I also got a cool story at the end of this video that I want to share about an experience I had with uh, a city. You know what I mean? And I'll get into that later in the video. So I just want to say before I start, um, you guys can check me out on Patreon, Brother Yosef on Patreon. You can also check out my website, nulyfetools@gmail.com. You can also check out TP Ministries at tpministries.org, if you want to get your indigenous identity. All right. So, yes, family, just want to put that out there before we get started. So, also, yes, I am opening up consultations again for people who want them. Understand it's going to be a line, so it's going to take a minute for me to get to you. If you want the consultation, um, just keep hitting me up about it, and I will eventually get to you about that consultation. All right. So, family, the first thing I want to talk about dealing with this topic is that the thing that everybody needs to understand is that all cities are built on a planetary grid, right? There's a grid system that some people call them the chakras of the planet, right? But there's a grid system that actually works, and it kind of moves throughout the planet. It doesn't move, but the energy moves throughout the planet. And in these grid areas, there is a lot of energy. The planet itself holds a lot of energy there. So if the planet holds a lot of energy, it makes it makes it easier for certain spirits to come in and out of these parts of the earth. All right. So if you look at any major city, it's built on a grid line, right? New York is built on the grid line. And sometimes there's people who actually map these areas out, and they purposely start towns here. Usually all cities were towns at one time, and then they became these humongous cities at one point, right? So these places were built in these areas on purpose, family. Even the American Indians knew that they should put their people in certain areas where Mother Earth had stronger energy. Okay? So that's the first thing I want you guys to understand before I just tell y'all, yeah, every city's a spirit. I want you guys to really grasp what I'm saying. All right? So these planetary grids don't only allow electric energy and chi, right? Chi energy to flow all throughout the earth. Like the chi energy and the org energy or orgone energy is heavier in certain areas, right? Certain mountain regions, certain um, uh, uh, regions where the city have these powerful grids, right? The org energy, ORG, you get the word organic, orgasm, all that good stuff. The org energy, the life force energy is heavier, and the electricity that runs through the planet is heavier in these areas, family. All right. But also the astral energy, all right, is heavier in these areas. So in these areas, in certain cities, family, believe it or not, people tend to wake up spiritually faster, right? There's movements where where spiritual movements happen faster in certain cities than they would do in another city. Okay, that's because of the energy grid. Like, it's just the truth that New York City has probably one of the biggest, and most powerful grids in the whole planet, right? And this is why you will see a lot of forms of music, and a lot of famous people come out of New York, right? And a lot of spirituality, right? A lot of the big spiritual teachers came from New York, right? A lot of spiritual energy is in New York, and not just spiritual energy, but energy period is in New York, right? And I'm talking about New York City. Um, and there's a lot of astral energy there as well, right? Astral energy. So this is where you get the idea that cities mirror each other in the astral world, right? So hip hop came out of New York, right? So there's a lot of things in the astral plane, family, that actually existed and does still exist, like other forms of music that we haven't even heard of yet, that we haven't brought down, right? So in order to bring that music down, you have to be in the right grid line, and the right type of person have to be able to channel that type of music down, or a certain group of people have to be able to channel that music down, right? And you know how it goes down here in the world. You get a certain type of music down here, the world disrupts it. And they mess the music up. And what I mean by that is they pervert the music. Hip hop, when it was first put out, was something that was a storytelling, high vibrational form of music, and it has become something totally different today. That that to the point where you know um people actually agree with drill music and certain types of murder music and music that actually talks about whatever, you know what I'm saying? And that's because the street element, which I'm gonna get into later, the street element was put into the music, right? And the street element had a lot to do with people just trying to survive. You know what I mean? So a lot of that got put into the music, you know what I mean? And that kind of just flipped. And everybody heard that story. How they used NWA to actually put the street element into the music. A big meeting was had and all that stuff. Everybody know that story, right? But at the same time, this is what they do to a lot of forms of music, family. And also certain forms of music they won't let come out because they need to control it. And some forms of music is so powerful it can't be controlled. And what do I mean by control? Well, somebody has to be able to every race on the planet has to be able to function in that music. Every race on the planet has to be able to vibe to that music. It can't just be for one generation, because that the music is so powerful it can actually uplift that generation, right? I always talk about this, how there's one form of dancing called crumping, that they actually spiritually shut this music down because they didn't want this music coming out. These kids was having kundalini rushes, from crumping, and doing certain dances that not everybody on the planet could do. But the dances were so spiritual, they was tapped into their ancestral DNA, right? So they shut that type of music down. Brother Bobby Hemmett talked about how the funk music, they never let it get big. They put out disco music because they were scared of funk music. So they never let the funk get too big because, like they say, you can't fake the funk, right? So they never let it get too big because not everybody can get down with the funk. And the type of people that could get down with it, it would have uplifted that people, right? When you understand the science of music and how music is so powerful, it influences the whole generation. Hip hop is so powerful, it influences all 7 continents. It influences everybody in the world, right? So we got to think about those types of things, and this is why they don't let certain types of music come out, family. Right? I want to make that very clear. But certain cities have these grids where they can pull down music easier than somebody in another part of the world because of the grid line they're on, right? And it just takes the right people with the right biology and the right mindset to be able to channel this music out, right? And that's kind of what happens in these grid lines, right? But you also got other forms of music like blues that was invented, like if I'm not mistaken, in Mississippi or Memphis, Tennessee, right? Or rock and roll, was invented in certain parts of the. So we got to understand, like, this has a lot to do with the grid system, family, that these people grew up in and these people live in. That this astral energy is being channeled down. Okay, it's being channeled down, family. So that's one thing that happens a lot. And also, like I said, the cities mirror each other on these grids. You saw that in the TV show Stranger Things. How they would go to the upside world and it would literally mirror, the physical world, even though this world vibration was lower. That world's vibration was lower. All right. Um, Another thing to understand, family, is that the people's thoughts, right? The thoughts of the people in that city and the trauma of the people in that city is what kind of creates and molds the spirit of that city, right? And sometimes that energy changes. Sometimes that energy evolves more to the left side or the right side, right? But the thoughts and the traumas of that city, the thoughts of the people and the traumas of the people in that city is what kind of shapes and molds the spirit, right? For that city, right? And as that city grows and evolves, family, that city will start to influence the people. But it will start to influence mostly the weak-minded people in a negative way, right? So the spirit is looking for energy, is looking to be fed. And a lot of times, but they will actually influence the city itself, will influence the thoughts of the people. This is why you hear some people say, I'm doing this for my city, right? I put on for my city, right? Or I love my city. Who are you talking to? It's like you're talking about a god or a person, right? Or they'll even tattoo the city on their body, right? Nothing wrong with that. It's cool. But do you really understand who your city is and what your city is about? Does your city lean more towards a demonic energy? Does your city lean more towards an angelic energy or elemental energy? Right? It's all different. So what am I really saying here? What I'm saying, family, is that all cities, the spirit of a city is nothing but a very powerful thought form. That's all cities are. They're very powerful thought forms that grow with the people. So this is why you have some cities that die, right? Some cities are dying out. They don't have the energy they once had, right? Like prime example, family. I come from a city up in upstate New York where the city is pretty much dying, right? Rochester, right? That city is kind of like it doesn't have the vibe I remember as a kid. Rochester, New York had the first indoor mall in U.S. history. Walt Disney came to the cut, and it was like all these investors came into my city and was building up, and then they all left in the 1950s. And I saw the decline of my city in the 90s. I really did. It was a time when all the big rappers and all the music people would come to my city. It would be a city you had to stop through, right? And even though a lot of famous people came out of my city as well, but it's like the energy slowly declined. I saw it. And the way that New York State is acting, from my opinion, it was time for me to go. Right? It was time for me to go, family. So some cities are literally losing their energy. And as they lose energy, they become more negative. Right? As the city energy starts to decline, it starts to become more negative. Now, some cities you have where it's sectioned off, where some of the city could be uplifting and it's moving forward and all these different types of futuristic things, and then you got some parts of the city that's very negative, right? So since people don't pray to cities, right, and they don't, people don't usually pray to cities. What happens, family, is a lot of the city takes its energy from people's thoughts. from the way people think in that city. And y'all know what I'm talking about. You know, you go to certain parts of the cities, you just know you got to be careful. Like LA, right? Los Angeles, you go to Los Angeles, you know you got to be careful. You can't be wearing certain things. You can't move a certain way. It's just the type of energy that city has, right? You go to Chicago, you know a certain part of Chicago you shouldn't go to, right? So when you another thing, family, is that as certain areas of the city becomes more negative, or the city itself starts to die, it will demand a sacrifice to give it more energy. So usually this has to be something that someone that a lot of people think about. Someone in the community, a lot of people love this person in the community, and he dies from a gunshot. Or just a celebrity happened to come through and they get shot. You know what I'm saying? That's a sacrifice in that city, right? And sometimes the city will demand that, right? Like I said, in certain areas. The heart of the city is downtown, family. So usually it wants a sacrifice to be downtown, somewhere in the downtown region. And we all know that most cities, the poorest people live more towards the downtown area. We got to think about this. And the people who are doing well tend to live on the outskirts of the city, right? So why do you always put the people who are the poorest, the people who think they're negative, near the heart of the city, right? The only city I saw that wasn't like that, and I could be wrong. Y'all let me know if I'm wrong. But was when my mother lived in Memphis and I would go visit, I would notice downtown was beautiful. And as you go out on the outskirts of Memphis, it got more, you know what I'm saying, more hood. You know what I'm saying? I thought that was weird. I'd never seen a city like that before. Downtown, people was chilling. They had nice, you know. And then as I went onto the outskirts of Memphis, it got more, you know what I'm saying? It got more crazy. So it was like backwards to me in that city, you know. But I always noticed that in most cities, that's how it is, right? So, like I said, remember this very powerful thought form, whether it's called Los Angeles, New York, sometimes it demands a sacrifice of somebody in to get so it can get more energy, right? So it can get more energy. Now, if that city's doing well, you will see that city thrive, and more people will be drawn to that city for a better life, right? So more people will be drawn to that city for a better life if that city is actually starting to strive and it doesn't have a lot of negative energy. So at one time, you know, Atlanta was the city to go to, especially if you was a music person, right? But now Atlanta is overpopulated. I'm not saying Atlanta's a bad city. Atlanta's a beautiful city. I have a good time every time I go there, but it has become overpopulated. You know what I'm saying? There's too many people there. So the new Atlanta has become, in my opinion, the new Atlanta has become Charlotte, North Carolina. I almost moved there myself. Charlotte, North Carolina. Beautiful city. It's also what you call a gateway city because a lot of people seek refuge in Charlotte, North Carolina from out of different countries. And, you know what I mean? A lot of people come there. And it's the same thing in Atlanta. A lot of people from different countries and different parts of the city live in Atlanta. Well, Charlotte, North Carolina is the same thing. A lot of people from all over the world, they come to Charlotte, North Carolina. It's like what you call a gateway city, right? And those cities tend to be beautiful. You know, hopefully the city can keep its energy up and, you know, nothing negative happens, you know. And I'm not a political person. I don't really get into the Democrat, Republican thing, but, you know, I have my own opinions about it, but, you know, it is what it is. I'm just leaving it at that, right? And once again, family, this video is not Brother Yosef talking facts. It is do your own research. You know what I'm saying? Do your own research. And you know, this is not medical advice, legal advice, travel advice. Please do your own research. Please do your own research, family. So I had to write down some notes, y'all, to make sure I don't forget to tell y'all anything. So I just wanted to make sure I covered those things. You know, so it can happen now. Just because a person dies doesn't make that city demonic, right? Too many murders, too many people thinking negative, the city will actually turn demonic. Absolutely, the city will actually be run by demons. It will be ran by a demonic energy. I apologize to say this, but it's just true. Memphis, Tennessee is the demonic city. I'm not trying to put nobody's city down, right? I'm just trying to say that every time I go to Memphis, I'm in a spiritual fight. It's literally people trying to kill me in Astral plane. It's like they hate my guts in Memphis, Tennessee. The last time I was there, well, I stopped there on my way to Texas when I drove from my city, and even my homeboys like, man, it's a vibe down here. I don't know, because we sensitive to energy. And I always knew it. I could feel certain things when I was there, right? It's a beautiful city, got a lot of culture, beautiful culture. It had good food when I went there, but it was just the energy. Like it's a lot of suicides. I noticed in the South as well, period, in the South, even down here in Houston, there's a lot of in-home violence. You know what I'm saying? People kill their own husbands and their wives and their own kids. It's crazy down here in the South, but overall, I remember in Memphis, like every time I went there, man, it was like I would have this dream where people's just trying to attack me every single time. It was crazy, right? So some cities are like that. I feel it when I travel through certain cities, right? So I want you guys to be mindful of that. You know what I'm saying? I want you guys to be mindful of it. Now, there's a lore that says that the spirit of the city lives at the highest building in the city, or what they would say the highest points, because some cities have mountains that are higher than most buildings. So the lore is the spirit of the city lives in the highest building of the city, or at the highest points of the city, right? Of that city. That's where the spirit of the city lives. That's what they would say. And if you wanted to meet the city, that's where you would have to go. But the city is the people. It is the thought form that moves through the homeless people, the rich people, the average everyday people. That's what the spirit of the city is, family. It is a very powerful thought form. All right? Very powerful thought form. So I wanted to tell a story real quick about one time in my city when I actually was sleeping and actually met an aspect of the city that people call the streets or the hood, right? So you could be from the hood, but you're not from the streets. So it's two different things. But this entity told me he was the streets. Okay, and I was just flying around doing what I do, and I seen this entity jumping in and out of people, right, as it was walking down the street. And I asked it, like, who are you? Like, what's going on? It pretty much told me that I am the streets. You know what I'm saying? And these people I'm jumping in are my children. And I was like, wow, that's kind of crazy. And this was a few years ago, and that kind of gave me the first idea. And I started putting myself into study about how these cities actually have spirits that rule over it. Now, there's a level to it where there could be a demon and an angel. There are angels that rule over cities, and they have to report back what's going on. But on a lower level, it's a thought form, and the streets. Like somebody say, I'm from the streets. What you're really saying, I'm being birthed by the streets. If you're from the streets, you're not from the streets. You're from your mother. But some people, the streets raised them. That's what it was. So they learn certain things, certain survival techniques. And I'm not putting nobody down. But the point I'm trying to make is, when you say stuff like that, you're saying that I'm a child of that. I'm a child of that. And that entity is a real thought form. The streets is a real thought form. The hood is a real thought form. The city, whatever city you rep, whatever city you're from, is a real thought form. This is a thought form, right? This is where I'm from. I'm not from New York City. I'm from upstate New York, right? But it's a thought form, right? And if you notice in that thought form, the people think a certain way. The people, to the point where the people even develop an accent. There's an accent that the people have, right? So it's a thought form. I don't care if you're from Sydney, Australia. In Sydney, Australia, that city has a thought form that rules over it, right? But some cities have more energy than others. Like New York City is probably the most energetic city on the planet. There's a lot of energy that runs through New York City, right? So I wanted to tell you guys this just to so you guys can understand, because when you talk about the hood or the streets as well, you're talking about a network, right? This is why no matter where you go in any part of the world, The streets is the streets, right? You could be from Memphis and you could be from New York City, and two real dudes from New York City and Memphis, when they see each other, real recognize real, because they both from the same network, so they recognize each other, right? You could be from Virginia and you could be from Texas. When two people see each other and they really live that street life, the real recognize real, right? It's a network. It's a thought form network that these two people was raised. Even though they're from two different cities, the streets is the streets, right? If you was born and raised in the ghetto or the hood, and you grew up eating, juleps and getting into fights at the playground, and your clothes getting dirty, your mom was yelling, "Cause get your ass in the house!" And if you grew up in that type of environment with popsicles, and your mama had a switch on the porch, all that, you went to the store, you had food stamps. We used to get picked on for having food stamps at the corner store. You know what I'm saying? But everybody in the street had food stamps. You know what I'm saying? So that's what it was. If you from that environment, then it don't matter if I'm from the ghetto and you from the ghetto. It don't matter what city you're from. We can recognize each other, right? We can recognize each other on that network. So yes, man. When we talk about a thought form, you're talking about a form of artificial intelligence. You're talking about a spiritual form of artificial intelligence, man. So just like you can create a robot here in the physical world, and eventually it becomes sentient from getting enough energy or enough data, it can become sentient and develop a form of consciousness. It's the same thing with a thought form. A thought form can get so much energy until it becomes sentient, and it gets its own mindset. It becomes an entity, all from a person's thoughts. So every city you see and every city you go to has a energy to it, right? Has an energy to it. So even when I moved to Houston, when I moved back the first time, I was having health issues and I got over them. And I found out that this city was pretty much adjusting me to live down here, right? It was adjusting me to live down here. So yeah, sometimes you'll move or you'll go to a new area and weird stuff will start happening. You're being adjusted. You're being adjusted, family. All right, so I wanted to hope you guys enjoyed that video. I know I went in on a bunch of different topics, but I want you guys to understand that, yes, every city, and you guys can go watch the video, Constantine, the City of Demons. I think it's on Amazon Prime or something like that, or Disney Plus or something. But it's a really good cartoon TV show, and it explains a lot. Man, it's really deep, too. It's really deep. I ain't going to say nothing. It's really good. The way he destroys a demon in there is really powerful, family. Check it out. But yeah, go check that out. But I want you guys to understand how every city you go to, I don't care what city you go to, it has a very powerful thought form that rules over it that we call a city. We give it a name. We tattoo it on our... Don't you know that's what makes you tattoo a city on your chest, is that it's a thought form, right? It makes you say, that's my city. It's a thought form. I'm not saying it's bad, because it doesn't have to be an evil thought form. I'm just saying that that's what it is, right? And inside that city, there's ghettos, there's suburbs, there's hoods, there's different sections. You know what I mean? And if you're from one of them places and you get into music, usually people rep where they from. You know what I'm saying? That's just what it is. That's because that's the thought form, part of the thought form area they're from. All right? But this is Brother Yosef. I'm going to bless y'all with a video today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And I will see you guys in the next video. All right? Peace, family.